Can you imagine being on earth when the devil opens the furnace of hell to release an angry army of fallen angels that have been locked up in prison for more than 4,000 years? That is exactly what will happen 5 months before the beginning of the Great Tribulation, as the Bible explains. Revelation 9 verses 1 to 3, and I read, "Then the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fallen from heaven to the earth. To him was given the key to the bottomless pit, and he opened the bottomless pit, and smoke arose out of the pit like the smoke of a great furnace. So the sun and the air were darkened because of the smoke of the pit. Then out of the smoke locusts came upon the earth." The passage informs us that when the fifth of 7 trumpets is blown, the God of heaven will hand over the keys of hell to Satan the devil, who is described as an angel that had fallen from heaven. The devil will then open the gate of hell to allow the fallen angels to come out of the furnace and torment all non-believers, who are described as people without the seal of God on their foreheads. These people will be tormented for 5 long months. I will quote once again from the book of Revelation. Revelation 9 verses 4 to 5, and I read, "And to them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. They were commanded not to harm the grass of the earth, or any green thing, or any tree, but only those men who do not have the seal of God on their foreheads. And they were not given authority to kill them, but to torment them for 5 months. Their torment was like the torment of a scorpion when it strikes a man." While the book of Revelation initially describes these creatures as locusts and scorpions, it provides more information to show that they are actually an army of spirit beings whose leader is the devil, who is represented by the crown of God which sits on their heads. Revelation 9 verses 7 to 9, and I read, "The shape of the locust was like horses prepared for battle. On their heads were crowns of something like gold, and their faces were like the faces of men. They had hair like women's hair, and their teeth were like lions' teeth, and they had breastplates like breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like the sound of chariots with many horses running into battle." As shown in the previous passage, the scorpions are actually a spiritual army, complete with shields or breastplates, vicious teeth, invisible horses, and chariots, ready to wage war against human beings for 5 deadly months. I will read again from the book of Revelation, which confirms that these creatures are led by Satan the devil, who is the destroyer and the angel of the bottomless pit. Revelation 9 verses 10 to 11, and I read, "They had tails like scorpions, and there were stings in their tails. Their power was to hurt men 5 months, and they had as king over them the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, but in Greek he has the name Apollyon." But we ask the question, how did these spiritual soldiers get into the bottomless pit in the first place? The book of Genesis informs us that just before the flood of Noah, some of the angels of heaven came down to the earth because they could not resist the beauty of the women found here on earth. So, The lustful angels abandoned their assignments in heaven, shunning their glorified heavenly bodies in preference to the sinful bodies of mortal men. The book of Jude provides more details. Jude 1 verse 6, and I read, "And the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he hath reserved in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day." The Apostle Paul informs us that there is a type of body dedicated to angels or heavenly beings, which is different from the bodies of human beings who dwell on earth. I will quote from the book of Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 15 verses 39 to 40, and I read, "Not all flesh is the same. People have one kind of flesh, animals have another, birds another, and fish another. There are also heavenly bodies and there are earthly bodies. But the splendor of the heavenly bodies is one kind, and the splendor of the earthly bodies is another." After abandoning their glorified heavenly bodies and becoming like mere mortals, the sinful angels became obsessed with the beauty of earthly women, whose unfamiliar human flesh they lusted after, in the same way that the men of Sodom lusted after the unfamiliar bodies of the two angels who came to visit Lot, as the book of Jude reveals. Jude 1 verse 7, and I read, "Even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh, are set forth for an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire." After abandoning their proper dwelling place in heaven, the lustful angels then proceeded to marry the beautiful daughters of human beings, as the book of Genesis explains. Genesis 6 verse 1 to 3, and I read, "Now it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves of all whom they chose." It is to be noted that the sons of God being referred to are not the God-fearing people of the earth, or the descendants of Seth, who was the third son of Adam. Instead, the sons of God are holy angels who were present with God when he created the earth, as God himself explained to Job. Job 38 verses 4 to 7, and I read, "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? To what were its foundations fastened? Or who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy." So, before Noah's flood, some of the angels of God, unable to resist the beauty of the daughters of human beings, came down to earth and married any women that they desired to marry. This kind of marriage was totally against God's laws, since the Lord has commanded that different kind of seeds must not be mixed, meaning that you cannot mix human genes with the genes of angels. I will read from the book of Leviticus. Leviticus 19 verse 19, and I read, "You shall keep my statutes. You shall not let your livestock breed with another kind. You shall not sow your field with mixed seed, nor shall a garment of mixed linen and wool come upon you. The result of the ungodly marriage and genetic mixing between angels and human beings was a race of giants known as the Nephilim, who are described in the book of Genesis as follows. Genesis 6 verse 4, and I read, "The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. These were the heroes of old, men of renown." In response to the lustful behavior of these angels, the God of heaven proceeded to throw the sinful angels into the bottomless pit of hell, a place known for intense heat and total darkness, as the Apostle Peter explains. 2 Peter 2 verse 4, and I read, "For if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell, and delivered them into chains of darkness, to be reserved unto judgment." These are the same fallen angels which will be released from hell before the great tribulation, so they can persuade human beings to repent from their ungodly ways before the arrival of the Antichrist or the beast. I will quote once again from the book of Revelation. Revelation 9 verses 1 to 2, and I read, "The fifth angel sounded his trumpet, and I saw a star that had fallen from the sky to the earth. The star was given the key to the shaft of the abyss. When he opened the abyss, smoke rose from it like the smoke from a gigantic furnace. The sun and sky were darkened by the smoke from the abyss." These fallen angels will be given a 5-month-long assignment or mission to torment the rebellious people of the world, so that they can repent before the beginning of the Great Tribulation. The book of Revelation provides more details of the 5-month period of intense suffering. Revelation 9 verses 3 to 5, and I read, "And out of the smoke locusts came down on the earth, and were given power like that of scorpions of the earth. They were told not to harm the grass of the earth, or any plant or tree, but only those people who did not have the seal of God on their foreheads. They were not allowed to kill them, but only to torture them for 5 months, and the agony they suffered was like that of the sting of a scorpion when it strikes. The entire world of unbelievers will be tormented by fallen angels for 5 months. During this time, people will try to escape the pain through death, but death will not be available as an option to anybody, meaning that nobody will die during those terrible 5 months, as the book of Revelation explains. Revelation 9 verse 6, and I read, "During those days, people will seek death, but will not find it. They will long to die, but death will elude them." Can you imagine being stung by scorpions each and every day for 5 months, but not being able to die or escape from such pain? This is what the devil will do to the rebellious people of the world as part of God's efforts to help them to repent and turn away from evil before the commencement of the Great Tribulation, which begins at the blowing of the 6th trumpet. The suffering of those days was prophesied by Rehoboam, who became king of Israel after the death of his father Solomon. When the people of Israel requested the new king to reduce the burden of suffering upon them after the death of his father, the king responded by promising to bring wicked scorpions upon the people, as the following passage explains. 2 Chronicles 10, verses 13 to 14, and I read, "The king answered them harshly, rejecting the advice of the elders. He followed the advice of the young men and said, 'My father made your yoke heavy. I will make it even heavier. My father scourged you with whips. I will scourge you with scorpions.'" So, the prophecy made by King Rehoboam will find fulfillment towards the end of time, when the devil releases the fallen angels to torment the entire human race for 5 months as punishment for being unfaithful to the God of heaven and worshiping false gods. As the Bible clearly indicates, what has happened in the past will happen again in the future, and there is nothing new under the sun. I will conclude with a quotation from the book of Ecclesiastes, which shows how God uses past events to predict future events. Ecclesiastes 1 verse 9, and I read, "What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun." Is there anything of which one can say, "Look, this is something new"? It was here already, long ago. It was here before our time. Very soon, the fallen angels will be released from hell to punish those people who do not believe.